I'm going to walk through all these considerations and a couple of other important aspects of deployment step by step over the next lectures. But I want to give you an overview of what's important when you consider deploying your application, your Django application. So if you want to move from development to deployment. For example, we'll have to think about our database again. During development, we automatically used SQLite, which in the end means that we get this SQLite file here, and in that file, all our data is stored. That's very convenient and that works, but the downside is that it's just one file in our project folder. And for many use cases, this might be enough, this might be fast enough, this might be good enough. There definitely will be also use cases where this is not enough. In addition, if you ever erase that file, because, for example, you're deploying your website to some server where everything is erased as soon as you deploy a new version of your application, if that's the case, then this certainly would be an issue. So using SQLite might work, and it's definitely not the wrong choice per se, but it might also not be the best choice. Therefore, we'll have to reconsider it and consider moving to a different database. And in this section, I'll show you both. I'll show you how to deploy SQLite, and I will also show you how to use a different database and connect that to your Django application. You also should revisit and adjust the settings of your Django application, this settings.py file. There we already did adjust some settings from time to time throughout the course, but there are some settings which we now need to adjust depending on our chosen hosting provider, depending on the database we're using, and also a couple of other aspects you should be aware of. So that's also something we'll take a look at in this course section. Now, another important consideration is related to our static files. We need to collect them, or we need to let Django collect them for us. And that might be unexpected, and I'll dive deeper into that and what exactly is up with that in a later lecture. But in general, static files, so our CSS files, JavaScript files we might have, images we might have, are not served automatically, just like user uploads are not served automatically. You might remember that for user uploads, to make them work, we had to add this line of code to our global URLs.py file, and it turns out for standard static files like CSS, we also will need to do something like this, because whilst they are served in development, when we run this run server command, whilst they are served there, this command will only give us a development server, not a server that is suited for production, for serving real users. And therefore, we can't rely on this automatic serving of static files, as it turns out. But again, that is something we're going to take a closer look at throughout this course section. We'll in general have a look at how we can handle static and uploaded files, not just regarding where we store it, but also how we serve them and how we can serve them in different ways, because they are not served automatically. So that's related to the previous point. This will just be a really important aspect, which involves multiple steps, which I will show you all in detail though. And last but not least, we will also need to choose a host and then deploy our application. Because it turns out that there will not just be one option for deploying a Django application. I will show you one example in this section, because I can't cover all possible hosts, but ultimately there will be multiple options, and I will talk about that as well. And when you decide to use a certain host or a certain hosting provider, then you will always also need to dive into their docs, and they typically also have examples, for example, for Django applications, which you should also consult. But these are all things and aspects and considerations we're going to take a closer look at throughout this course section. I just already wanted to put them out there.